Will, it's great to finally get to record an episode of Beyond the Network with you here out in the real world. In this case, we're in lovely, hot San Diego for Qualcomm 6G Leadership Day.
Yeah.
And just to meet FTC guidelines, thank you to Qualcomm for bringing us out for the event. We sure appreciate it. It was very informative. And let's get into it. It was a really full agenda today.
Yeah, 6G Leadership Day was the way it was branded. Yeah.
That's right. And I think we started with the big picture from Durga Maladi. So the idea here, if I understood it correctly, was Qualcomm's present at the device, they're present at the network edge, they're present within the telco network,
right,
and increasingly in the data center.
Mm-hmm.
So Qualcomm, they're present at all these points, there's AI everywhere, and then connectivity, in this case 6G, is this sort of platform that connects across, right? Is that what you got from it?
Yeah, they call it a smart fabric, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought Durga did a great job as well, talking about how we are beginning to move from a device application-centric model to an agentic framework model that focuses on customer experience. And that 6G can be that smart fabric. I mean, fabrics are back in vogue,
right,
finally. But yeah, that's exactly what I took away from his comments.
See, and you made a really interesting point there that I was really happy to see come up at multiple points throughout the presentation, was the idea of, well, okay, we've traditionally looked at all of these network-centric KPIs. Mm-hmm. Now we're looking about user KPIs, user experience, and
right,
then letting the context and the performance of whatever the application is inform the network.
Yeah.
We saw some demos about that this afternoon as well. I think dynamic quality of service was the one that really jumped out to me. That was quite interesting. This idea of, as you put it, not device-centric, but user-centric, agentic-centric. I think
right,
AI is the new UI has been a phrase that they've been seeding for a few years now, but it really came through today in everything that we saw.
Yeah, I agree. And what's really interesting, I thought, throughout the demos, the team did a masterful job of showing the interaction of device to network. And then, you mentioned the dynamic QoS. The network responding to traffic profiles, like agentic profiles, more persistent data flows that are required for agentic. There are a lot of statistics. Cisco recently, shared its research findings that on average, an agent generates up to 450% more traffic than a human. That makes sense because agents don't sleep, they work 24/7. They are doing multiple API and tool calls and that sort of thing. And what I really took away from that is that the opportunity for 6G to function as that smart fabric and to provide the necessary assurance to make all this work, and so you don't create bottlenecks and that sort of thing. What I didn't hear was anything around security, because I think there's an opportunity there to improve the security with the same architectural tenets. What do you think about that?
Well, I think a lot of what Qualcomm has done is they've advanced their modem platforms, as they've baked security into the SoC, particularly into the NPU.
Right.
So I think a lot of it is, if you can do on-device processing for AI, your security threat surface is much smaller because the data is not really leaving your device.
Good point.
Right?
Yeah.
But, I will tell you, and they led the program with this during Ajit Pai's session.
Yeah.
In an agentic world, as you mentioned with Cisco's research, humans, they click and they wait.
Right.
Agents, they just swarm.
That's what GT Patel likes to say, right? Yeah.
So, uplink is going to be an issue.
Oh yeah, and that was a huge emphasis today, like the focus on balancing downlink with uplink, given the change of traffic profiles and that sort of thing. Also improving spectral efficiency at the same time, and then improving power. When you bring more intelligence and more, just improvement to the overall network, that reduces, battery drain on devices, and that improves the customer's experience at the same time, right?
Yeah, so we did get a pretty good look at the sort of spectrum outlook here in the U.S. particularly, and there's a lot of work to be done, particularly if we're looking at commercialization 29.
Yeah.
We do have some things going on at the federal level that give you some hope that it's all going to fall into place. But a 400 megahertz channel, that's a lot of continuous spectrum. So I think they were very clear that this is a call to action. I think that's a big part of why CTIA was represented right there at the top of the program. Was this is fairly urgent for the U.S., particularly in the context of global 6G leadership, right?
Yeah. And certainly there have been improvements in spectrum deployment and that sort of thing. But more needs to be done from my perspective. And I know this is an area that you've researched heavily, right, over the years. So I think you're far deeper into all the mechanisms and machinations that are going on in Washington.
Yeah. As I told you earlier in the day, the current and former chairman of the FCC have me blocked on Twitter for various reasons. But no, I think we do have a look at a good pipeline. It's just a matter of pushing this through the process and getting it able to be deployed. Speaking of deployment, I thought it was really interesting. We've been hearing from Qualcomm for a long time about this GigaMIMO concept.
Moving from massive to giga, right? And you and I saw some demos this afternoon. We actually saw some reference designs that Qualcomm has built. We walked through an RF chamber in a very warm warehouse in San Diego today, but yeah.
So, the headline here is this is a 1,000+ antenna element, 256 transmit chains.
It's crazy, right, to think about the density of that.
16 gigs down is what I saw in the demo I watched. And I think it was upwards of 2 gigabits on the uplink side. So this is big material change from what we're seeing with 5G today.
Right, for sure. And then we saw more sensing demos as well. And as we discussed on a prior podcast, I spent time with Ericsson and AT&T recently in Dallas. I really liked what they were doing. It was live. Mm-hmm. So they had Qualcomm had a camera, on a roof, kind of mimicking a base station. And then they had someone piloting a drone, and it was real. It wasn't faked out. Like, we were watching traffic flow on this road that runs by one of the Qualcomm buildings that we were in, and then we were watching the drone, and it's quite impressive. And they're doing that on a 5G network, right? And there's some elements of their 6G stack that were deployed in that. But it's super compelling, and this is something that you and I have talked about. ISAC as being a potential game changer, right?
Yeah, and it is interesting to see how quickly ISAC is developing. Because if you would have asked me 6 months ago, this is a defense technology for very obvious reasons. But now, you referenced the Ericsson demo that was in Dallas a few weeks back, which we've talked about on the show. We saw another one today, and it is coming into focus for me that there are multiple paths to market that are not defense that bring some real material benefits. And I guess what I like about it is that it's it's using channel state information that's already there, but just in a novel new way. So I guess that's worth tying back to the idea of, okay, how does Qualcomm define 6G? It's like 3 pillars: connectivity, compute, sensing.
Right.
So sensing, I think we're going to hear a lot more about that. But from what I could tell today, it's fairly compelling as it is now. So I really can't wait to see how this develops.
What it looks like in a 6G world, right? And I'm also, Sean, leaving with sort of a different frame of mind. So I think if you would have asked me 6 months ago, can MNOs leverage the current 5G infrastructure that's deployed, and can 6G just be a software layer on top of that? But what Qualcomm is really driving, through its participation with 3GPP and standardization, is defining, again, improvements in those 3 areas: spectral efficiency, and they're bringing solid technology and silicon to go support that. So there is going to be some level of hardware refresh, maybe not to the extent that we saw moving from 4G LTE to 5G, but I'm leaving this 6G Leadership Day with a different sort of frame of mind that, I don't think it's just going to be dropping an AI software-defined layer on top of existing 5G infrastructure.
And I think this is a really good point, and I'll give Qualcomm credit for this because they addressed it very early in the program today too, is, did 5G change the world? Did it deliver this Industry 4.0 connectivity fabric that we were all expecting? Maybe not.
No.
But it did a lot of good. I believe the statistic that was cited was the cost for a gigabit of mobile data
Has
gone down 97%
97. That
between
is
4G
crazy.
and 5G. And then Ajit Pai made a really interesting point, fixed wireless access. When we were talking about 5G before it was commercialized, fixed wireless access was not on anybody's slide deck. It was not in the marketing.
Was not on the
materials.
bingo card. No.
But I think to paraphrase him, though, well, what did it do? Well, it displaced entrenched monopolies in home broadband service. So this is
It lowered the price for many, like especially in rural America, that can't afford $50, $60, $70 for a fiber connection, and it's convenient as well. You set up that CPE in a window, and away you go. And the mobile network operators have proven that they have not sacrificed capacity and support for mobile users by deploying fixed wireless access solutions like T-Mobile, like their solution, their 5G home internet, like AT&T's Internet Air, So I mean, at the end of the day, that's a positive thing. It's not necessarily sexy, but I do hope that we've learned that this bifurcation with non-standalone and standalone is something that we don't want to entertain. But I did sort of in some of the Q&A pick up on there will be there'll be a gradual evolution, right? From core to RAN and that sort of thing as we move from 5G to 6G. But I think the commonality in hardware. And I think we've really advanced over the last several years with converged core technology and that sort of thing. I think we'll ease that transition so that we don't have that just definite split that I think really slowed the deployment and realization of really impactful use cases beyond what we just talked about.
Yeah, I mean, here's how I'm trying to explain it to myself, at least. Is 6G, is this an evolution? Is it a revolution? Well, it's both. There's an evolutionary pathway from 5G to 6G. We see that as the waveform and the channel coding and these kind of things are pulled forward. But then we see revolutionary use cases like ISAC,
like
the ability
sensing.
to detect things in motion. So it's all very compelling. I thought it was a great event.
Yeah, no, I learned a lot, and I'm walking away with a different, thought and opinion on, how this is all going to progress. But Sean, it's great to connect. It's great to do our first Beyond the Network episode together, and hopefully we'll be able to do more in the future.
Yes, sir. Always a pleasure.
Awesome.